Hey guys, welcome to a virtual release of our 2018 Petite Sirah. This is a wine we've been really excited to get out from the winemaking standpoint. It's something that we don't grow a lot of in New Mexico, but it's a varietal we love. You see it in a lot of our blends. So it's something we really want to showcase and share with you today. It's a limited run for us, only 120 cases produced of this. It's our 2018. I'll let Fabian do the honors and open the bottle for us here. While he's doing that, I do have one of my score sheets that we've used before. Today, we're gonna really try to walk you through the ins and outs of tasting and tasting objectively. But I am gonna make note of the fact that I am drinking Petite Sirah, that the vintage year is 2018. And when I'm doing it. Open like a pro. So I'm gonna go ahead and pour this for both of us. Thanks, Fabian. All right, so first what are we gonna do? We're gonna take a look, right? So if you remember on these sheets, guys, flip over to the back side. You want to hold it up in contrast to a white piece of paper if you don't have this sheet, and just kind of look at that color. Man, that's pretty purple, huh?
Yeah.
What would you describe that?
Well, giving it a swirl, you know, and looking at it, I'd say it's pretty purple. Kind of a ruby red / purple, deep hue for sure.
Yeah, those are nice, deep, dark colors. So that's something that we're looking to take into consideration. For me, I mean, I don't know what it tells you about the wine, but I'm already thinking, okay, this is going to be big and bold because of that color. You know, color doesn't necessarily mean it's tannins or doesn't necessarily mean it's body, but it is a big indicator at times. And usually when I see something that is this ruby or this purple in the glass, I'm thinking it's going to be bigger and bolder.
Sure.
All right, why don't you walk us through the old-fashioned smell?
Gonna give it a good swirl. Open it up. We just opened this bottle. Sometimes it's nice to let the bottle breathe for a little bit as well. But just giving it a good swirl like that, and then remember starting a little bit further away and bringing the glass closer to you. Pick up a lot of like almost pomegranate, maybe a little hint of cranberry. Just dark berries, kind of a good way to describe some stuff.
That's what I was about to say, like some dark cherry almost, or some like raspberry, a little bit in there.
Pick up a little bit of the oak for sure. You know, a little hint of vanilla on the nose.
So keep in mind, this is what we smell, guys. It doesn't mean it's right or it's wrong. You might be smelling something totally different. This is the fun part. Tell us what you smell. Comment what you smell. Let your people around you know what you smell, and see if somebody picks it up. Because just because Fabian says vanilla, it doesn't mean I need to smell vanilla. I may not smell that, I might smell something totally different. This is a fun part to see what you smell that's totally different, that maybe what is really strong to you and strong to someone else are two totally different things. With this, guys, once you go ahead, pause those videos at home, do the first step, do the second step, fill your form out, and kind of go from there. All right, welcome back, guys. So, Fabian, what do you think? Are you, from your smell, from your overall optical sensory of this, what's your assessment of the wine so far? What are you expecting to taste?
Well, you know, according to the color, typically whenever you get this like deep color in a wine, it doesn't necessarily signify like a lot of tannin. However, thicker skins are going to have more color. So, you know, we are going to get an association, not necessarily a direct correlation, but there's going to be an association for me at least in my mind. So I am going to expect a lot of tannins. I mean, yeah, the color, it's, I don't know, it looks clean, doesn't look like it's chalky or it's like got any kind of haze at all. On the nose, I mean, it smells fruity, so I feel like it's going to be just nice and big and bold and kind of fruit on the palate. So what about you?
Yeah, I think you're right on, and while you were describing it, I couldn't wait there, and I had to take my first taste. You know, the hard part about smelling it over and over, and for me, is it's like, it's such, I think I mess these videos up constantly because I'm always wanting to take that first sip, you know, and just in anticipation. I'm sure a lot of our audience has as well. But yeah, it's very similar. I get a lot of fruit on the nose, but seeing that color, kind of looking at the wine in the glass, I'm thinking it's going to be big and robust and full bodied. But based off, the visuals, the initial sensory, what I'm getting on the nose there, I do think it has this like really pretty fruit structure to it, and it's going to show that it's going to be, it's not that it's young. I think it's actually right about this time where you're really going to really start to enjoy this wine, and that was one of our decisions in winemaking to put it in the bottle, right? But I do think it's it's ready, but it's going to be big and bold, and I think fruity, but also show some tannins. So now, guys, go ahead and take that swirl. Now remember that first sip is just mouthwash. So really, we don't know what you had first. You don't know what you had before. It's not going to be a good way to judge the wine. That first sip is just kind of coating your palate, and then that next sip, a couple seconds later, is really what's going to help you tell what the wine tastes like.
Yeah, I mean, definitely has tannin structure. Definitely has fruit. I'd say pretty well balanced, but definitely one of the bigger wines we produce, for sure. It's tasty.
And that's the funny thing about this varietal, I think, is that Petite Sirah you don't really see in the bottle a lot by itself because it is so big and bold and tannic. Sure. And it's kind of a monster, I think that a lot of people don't really know how to handle it from a winemaking standpoint. It's 100% New Mexico fruit in the bottle, but it is closer to 14% alcohol. I think this is exactly 14% alcohol. Harvest date on this was 8/31/2018, so came around right around a little earlier, maybe a week earlier, 2 weeks earlier than standard, but still right in line. But I do think full-bodied, very fruity, and then I am going to say that it is big and bold, and it does have those like very big tannins that are kind of grabbing a hold of your palate there.
Sure.
And guys at home, if you don't know what tannins are, and you hear, and there's a lot of these words that we're going to kind of slam out because it's something we do all the time, right? But if you don't know what tannins are, one of the ways that I like to describe tannins to people is it's like what that feeling is once the wine has gone away. It's a little bit of that, like, how's it feel on your tongue? And some people say, well, I've never had wine before, how do I know what it feels? Well, it's if you're drinking black coffee, the way that feels, or grapefruit feels, is it's that kind of like that sensation.
Overbrewed tea.
Yeah, overbrewed tea.
It's kind of like that texture it leaves on your teeth. Yeah, if you ever get bored, just peel a grape skin and just eat the grape skin, and you'll get a sense of like tannin, basically, because it's gonna be in the grape skin. But yeah, overall, as far as like going through the sheet, as far as body goes, I'm gonna say this is full body.
Oh yeah, I agree 100%.
Tannins high.
Tannins, I think definitely high. And guys, so go ahead and do this before we cheat anymore. Take a second, pause that video, and why don't you fill out up on your sheet up to this point and see where you're kind of at, because really this is just about as much about for you as it is for us. One of the things I recommend too is like, think that this wine was just released. So what's it gonna taste like in 6 months? So if you have a half case or a case at home, do this a couple times and see how it changes for you. See those flavors that you pick up at different times. It's kind of fun, I think, the way the wine changes and the way that we change over time, and what we do and don't like, or what we maybe sense at one point in time. But yeah, I agree with you. I think, it is big tannins, big full body. I think we saw that right away looking at color and nose. But yeah, it is big and bold and voluptuous. It's jumping out of the glass. It's almost too big for the glass.
It's a mouthful.
It is. It's a big wine, and I think that's something I enjoy to drink at home. I think it's something a lot of our audiences enjoy to drink. Now, if you're not a big, dry drinker, this might be a little too big for you. Not to say you're not going to enjoy it, but it may not be your number one if you're not a big full body
shot.
Yeah.
You might, because it is kind of fruity. Like I think the flavor profile of it as well, and yeah, it's a lot. I think this is a wine that I would be okay calling complex, which I don't like to say very often because complex is kind of a cheat word to me, where I think you need to be able to back it up and you need to say, well, there's all these other things going on in this glass. It's just, I don't know, even going back to the nose, there's a little bit of spice on the nose that I think is really nice. I don't know if it's black pepper or maybe just a little bit of like clove or something, but I don't know, anytime I smell a little bit of clove in the wine, I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying that. I think it's something everybody's gonna enjoy. It's a varietal that I would love to see more of it grown in New Mexico, and one of the ways we do that is you guys jump on and buy more wine if you like this varietal. It's 120 cases for us, so it's not a big production. it's a small run for us, but I think it's something that I really enjoyed. I think that more and more people are starting to get into, but they don't quite fully understand. So let's go ahead and finish this thing out. How would you rate your acidity here?
I'd say it's kind of medium to high. I think it's well balanced is the thing, because there isn't an acid presence. I don't think it's over the top. It's not like a bitter tartness or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd say medium to high for sure. What about you?
Yeah, I would say definitely that medium to high acidity. As far as sweetness goes, I think bone dry. I
Sure.
don't pick up any perceived sweetness.
Mm-hmm.
Fruit, for me, I'm kind of torn between ripe to overripe fruit.
Same.
Yeah. I think it's like ripe fruit, but it's
Mhm.
starting to give a little bit in that like jammy world. I'm starting to get a little bit of that marmalade kind of preserved notes coming through. And so for that, guys, that's like one of those things when you're looking at this, you're like, what do you mean by ripeness of fruit? You got to think, like, is this something, does it taste like jam? Does it taste like a little raisiny? That's a little overripe, right? Does it taste more like something that you just bit into that you had on your counter and you're like, oh man, that's perfectly ripe? Or are you biting into it and you go, I wish I would have eaten this a week from now. That's gonna be what young tastes like. So those are some of those fruit characteristics coming through. Is it tart, is it juicy, or is it that big or jammy rich? So something to take into consideration there as you're doing this. And all of this, all it really does is just really like help you kind of pick apart these little tiny nuances in wine. And don't get us wrong, like we don't expect you to have to do this to drink and appreciate a glass of wine. I mean, I don't sit at home and do this, on every single glass I
Sure.
have, but I do like it when I'm trying a wine for the first time because it gives it an assessment for me, and I know where to put it on the spectrum, and I kind of know what I think about that, and I know the class that judged it in my mind. So if it is big and full bodied, and I have people over for dinner, and I'm like, oh man, half my group is not a big red drinker, or not a big dry drinker even,
Yeah.
then this may not be my go-to and my choice.
Sure.
As food pairings I think can be overdone, and I think they can kind of be overstated. So it's not something we like to focus on as a winery. But for me, if I were pairing this with something, I think a big gorgeous cut of mid-rare beef, man. That has all the tannin structure to go with it. Aged cheeses, I would like to see this.
Oh, yeah.
I have a aged manchego right now that I get from our local Mario's Market here in town, and man, I love that. So that's something I would love to have some of that with this later, and I'm sure we'll hear in a second. I'll be sure to give you a piece, but
Sure.
I think that's kind of the fun with it, and I do want to point that out to you guys at home. Is like always remember that about the wine that's in your glass. Is that it's meant to have fun with it, and pairing to the occasion, pairing to the event. If you and I right now want to go hike the peak, I'm not sure we'd want to drink this bottle of wine when we got done exercising for 3.5 hours. And that's kind of silly, but remember that, and remember that as you guys, as you're buying wine, is pair it to the occasion, pair it to what you have going on. Now tonight, sitting here on the couch with my wife watching some movies, I think this is perfect. I think it's beautiful and something I'd love to get into. What sort of pairing inspiration do you have for the folks at home on something like
Definitely
this?
some heavy meats, I was thinking like prime rib or something like that. I honestly, like, this is also kind of the type of wine where I would honestly just have a glass or two and just enjoy the glass or two. Because there's certain wines where I do want to have it with dinner, and there's certain wines where I'm like, I just want to experience this glass to the fullest. I want to have my palate cleanser of cheese, maybe, something on the side just to, every now and then taste, kind of refresh my palate. But this is the kind of wine where I'm going to want to honestly just sit there over conversation and just talk about this wine, and like maybe, get off track a little bit, but at the same time, like, this is a wine that I want to experience because it is something that is big, and it is kind of like jammy, and it is like tannic, and it's got a lot of structure, and it's an experience because it is such a big wine. And oftentimes I think whenever it is such a big wine, to me, I'm just like, I just want to taste that. Like, that's all I want to do is just experience this glass. So,
I definitely can appreciate that. And actually, the bigger the bottle of wine, the less I pair it with food personally.
Sure,
for me.
for sure, yeah.
Because it is something like, I actually don't drink cab with dinner. I drink cab afternoons, like the way I do it. And a lot of people like cab is that entree course, and that's why people pair it. But for me, I'm the same way. It's like, man, I just like to have it by itself. One thing to mention too, and I think like it's kind of funny for you guys, at home, but if you watch us, if this was Nuevo Verde, right? So if this was our January wine of the month, I would have probably finished this glass by now. Like I would
Sure.
probably like crush this.
Sure, yeah.
You know, and it's like, but it because it's light and it's crisp and it's just like drink. Whereas something that is bigger and bolder and fuller bodied and more tannic, I think it's you sip it longer. Like
Absolutely.
it takes you longer to drink the glass. And I want to point that out because I think some people like they don't realize that, you know, but it is something that does take a little longer to drink a glass of some of the bigger, fuller bodied reds and stuff like that. And that's totally normal. So if you're like, oh man, like I like it, but you just got home from work and you like want to have 3 glasses of wine, you might start somewhere else and then end up here because like for me to sit here and drink 3-4 glasses of this right now, like that would be that'd take me till the end of the night, you know, it'd take me to the end of the night, which is not a bad thing if you're trying to have some moderation at home. But
keep in mind, tannins build on your tongue as well. So tannins, like this being super tannic, the more you drink it, the more you're gonna get a layer of just like tannins all over your tongue. It's just gonna keep building and building to the point where you're just gonna literally have to take like a paper towel and like scrape it off of your tongue to kind of refresh your palate, which is I think awesome as well. I think that's a great experience too because you just see all this color on a paper towel.
you have to try it once, especially if you're not prone to gagging. It's some people can't do that, but yeah, something to try. Or like Fabian said, you know, have some cheeses, have a cracker nearby, have a piece of bread, so you can kind of refresh that palate. One thing to talk about too is like coffee beans. You know, a lot of people have like in between smells. You know, if you really just can't smell anything, or you had a glass of wine before and it smells like that, or the house has like heavy odors or whatever, or candle. Earlier we did a tasting today with some folks, and we had just cleaned one of the rooms we were going to taste in. I was like, you know what, let's not taste it here. Let's go taste in a more neutral room because it does have such a huge effect. So, you know, guys, if you're like, oh man, I'm just smelling cinnamon, then you look over in the corner of your house and you have a cinnamon candle burning, that's going to overwhelm that sensory a lot, and it's going to make you taste it too.
You can also use like just your own skin as a reset as well. So, you know, not coffee beans, because coffee beans can reset. However, just smelling your arm, and that'll kind of reset your nose as well to where you can potentially get a better smell out of your glass of wine.
Unless you work in a winery and you stink.
Yeah, that's
you know,
true.
Then that's like,
I smell good.
I don't recommend it. I don't recommend people smell you, I guess is my point.
True.
So, you know, getting into finish, and everybody, well, what's finish? Are we done? We are, you know, coming towards the end, but finish is, you know, for you guys at home, is like, it's what you perceive from that wine after you no longer have liquid in your mouth, right? So what is that perception? What is that finish? How does it end up? What is that back bit? What does it leave you with? You know, Damien, why don't you walk through what you're getting from that a little bit? You know, for me, I think for the amount of tannins in the glass, I think it's pretty silky smooth. But however, I do think there's definitely an expression of tannin on the finish, you know, so I do think that shows. And why don't you walk us through like what you're getting now and maybe what you expect to get from this bottle in 6 months or 9 months?
Okay. Well, I mean, I think this would also be a good time for people to kind of go through the aromas and the tasting notes, because that's kind of the part, you know, previously with that goes along with body tannin, acidity, sweetness, and fruit. You can also go into the aromas and the tasting notes. So there is that list of all these different things. Now this list I think is important because one thing whenever you are tasting wine and smelling wine, it helps to be able to look at a word and smell and think of that word. So, you know, you smell it and you're like, okay, does it smell floral? Does it smell spicy? And certain times you're gonna read that word and it's gonna like kind of trigger something in your brain, basically like, oh, okay, I do smell that. And same thing with tasting. You know, you can taste it. You can be like, okay, well, is it astringent? Is it berry? Is it buttery, chocolatey, whatever? Go through that list and kind of one by one kind of see what you're getting out of it as you're reading the list. So now might be a good time to kind of pause and do that if you'd like. But as far as like on the finish, for me, I think it's got a kind of still a fruity finish, you know? It's like I swallow and then I'm getting kind of like a cranberry almost. And, you know, like cranberry juice is even pretty tannic to me, you know? I think it's a juice that I can't have a lot of because it's like the tannins just build on your tongue. I think it's very smooth. I think it is very silky, but I think there is a lot of tannin structure. And I think in 6 months, that tannin structure is going to mellow out pretty nice. It'll still be big. I think it'll still be huge. And I think it'll still be really enjoyable. And I'll still want to just have it by itself. But I think it'll kind of showcase more of the fruit and the oak in here in like 6 to 9 months.
So walk me through that. You know, walk everybody through at home. Like, what causes that to happen over time? You know, what is that? What happens? Because, you know, I think I say that a lot. It's like, try it now, try it later.
Sure.
But, you know, what's happening in the bottle, right? Like, you put the cork in, we put the capsule on, we're done from a winemaking standpoint. Why does this not taste the same in 6 months, 9 months, a year from now, 5 years from now?
Well, and I think you described it years and years ago in one of my early training days, like with Nosy Water. And you know, wine's interesting because like whenever we finish making wine after the fermentation process, then we kind of like allow it to find itself in the tank, split it up into all these barrels, and then consolidate all these barrels, and then split it up again into all these into a tank again, and then we split it up again into a single bottle. And so we're like putting it together, stripping it apart, putting it together, stripping it apart, and then the last stage is to put it alone in this bottle, and it kind of has to find itself. Kind of has to arrange itself in the bottle, and I think, you know, with us using cork still allows a little bit of oxygen to pass through that cork, so it does age well. And you know, micro-oxidation, which is happening in the barrel, which is happening in the cork, is going to allow it to kind of round out a little bit. It's going to get really nice and smooth and kind of softer on the palate. The tannins will start to kind of just mellow out to where it is a little bit more silky and like ripe berry versus, you know, especially with cab, you get more herbaceous flavors for sure at the beginning, and then as it gets older, then it gets to more fruitiness. And so that's why I like aging our wines as long as we do, and that's why I like using corks, because it does allow that tannin structure to really mellow out. So you end up getting a wine going from astringent and straight tannins to more berry and like velvet, which is like a nice transition. And it's basically just the bottle sitting and finding itself and a little bit of oxygen passing through that cork.
Yeah, and I mean, great explanation. You know, a couple things so you're sitting at home and you're like, wow, I just got 6 bottles. And right now, maybe it is a little too tannic for me, so I do want it to round out a little bit. And so time's gonna help with that. And I think we both agree that time is gonna make that softer and the tannins not as abrasive and as coarse as they are when it's first bottled. But one of the things to take into consideration is how are you gonna store that wine? Don't go put it in your window at 80 degrees. You know, don't go put it in a room that gets to 30 and then gets up to 90. Don't have it sit upright for the next 6 years on a shelf. You know, if you don't have a wine fridge at home, which I highly recommend, they're not a big investment. They are nice for your wine, but you know, find a cabinet, find a closet that doesn't get any light, to where they're going to be laying on their side, and that wine is going to be touching the cork, so your cork doesn't draw out, and your temperature doesn't fluctuate a whole lot. And for me, in a perfect world, I love storing wine under 60 degrees. You know, I love storing it in the mid 50s for my reds, my whites, both. That's where I like it. It's even good service temperature, because I think as you pull it out in the 50s, it warms up to room temperature pretty quickly. That's something to take into consideration if you do want to store for a long period of time, and something that I think people should take in, you know, and think about. And so, you know, with that, if you have wine at home or you just got a bottle, you know, grab a couple more, guys. Age this; it's going to show gorgeously. I got a couple cases this late away. We'll have it in the library waiting for you, but you will have to pay a lot more if you're waiting to find it in the library. So now's your time to get it at a good deal in the library yourself and hold it back. But you know, with that, Fabian, why don't you give me your overall impression? So, you know, from our standpoint, like, you've taken everything into consideration. You now have a full respect and appreciation for this wine. At this point in time, I suggest to you guys, if you haven't filled any of this out, you haven't had fun with it, go ahead and pause for a second, come back to us, make sure you're kind of getting your assessment together of the whole entire wine. But, you know, what do you think about this? You know, where are you at with it in the glass? And now's a good time, guys, to revisit one more time and take another final sip, just so you do reacquaint yourself with the wine. And that's the fun part of this, is drinking, right? So.
Well, so what's interesting is, even just since we've opened this bottle, which I think has been about 10, 15 minutes or so, it's already opened up so much more. You know, and that's just also just oxygen allowing it to open up. And so it's getting better as I sip it, you know, and sure, my palate's getting a little more used to the tannins. But overall, I mean, like, it's a really nice wine. It's a really big, complex wine that I just enjoy a lot. I'm a sucker for oak. It has the oak exposure that's there. It's not overbearing. It's not like over the top. It's not nothing but oak. It's got that fruitiness. It's got that ripeness that I like, the level that I like. Alcohol's not too over the top, but it is a little hot. But yeah, overall, it's just really nice to me. It's something that, like I said, I would love to just have a glass of this and just like sit there and enjoy it. You know, I think this is something that I would like. If I know somebody's coming over to my house and they like dry reds, this is what I'm gonna pour for them to be like, hey, we're gonna have one glass of this, but like it's one really good glass.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's something that, you know, I'd be happy to show off to somebody. And you know, my overall impression is I think it's gorgeous. I think it's a beautiful bottle of wine. I love it now, and I'm going to drink a lot of it now. I'm also excited to see what it shows in the bottle in a couple of years.
Absolutely.
So for me, I think it's a drink now / hold. So I'm probably going to pick up a couple cases. You know where to get it. Noisy Water Winery, right? NoisyWaterWinery.com. You guys know where to grab some too. But I'm going to get some. I'm going to hang on to some. And I'm also going to drink some now.
Sure.
And just kind of see how that all, you know, my difference is. Probably fill a couple of these out. Remind myself what it tastes like all the way through, and watch this wine kind of metamorphosis and transform the bottle. I think that's a really good summary on our end. I enjoy what this is, and I'm excited for you guys to try it, and I hope you love it too. You know, let us know. Give us your feedback. You know, let us know if you have questions or things we didn't answer in this as far as it goes. Just one brief recap for you guys. Remember, we always do our truth in winemaking on the back of the bottle. It's going to tell you your dryness. It's going to tell you your body. It's also going to tell you the wine itself, the case is produced, the alcohol, the harvest date, the vineyard. So this is going to be grown by our buddy Paul DeAndre down in Deming, New Mexico, coming from his vineyard, the Brixit harvest, and of course the vintage and all that. So we're telling you those facts there, but hopefully this gave you guys a little more. Thank you for buying our wine and supporting us. We hope you're enjoying your 2021, and have a great year, guys. We look forward to the next one. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.